Hi, everyone. It's I don't know if I should say it's good to see you, but I think I should say it's good to see you, but it's also strange times. We woke up this morning with a message from the United States speaking about 200% tariffs, possibly, on alcohol, wine, whiskey, as a retaliation of EU's tariffs. That was a retaliation of US tariffs. And we have received, just as a background, a lot of questions from PSPs in the industry, but also from creators that we are supporting, customers generally. And we got from a handful of PSPs, can you please have a webinar where we can speak about this, how it impacts the industry, how to navigate this. And I therefore have two people that I will soon introduce, but just to bring the whole situation into context. Believe it or not, but we're actually witnessing a fundamental shift, I would say, in global trade dynamics. And it has come swiftly, and it has come from left and right, and north and south. So on the one hand side, we see tariffs and trade barriers disrupting old established relationships. I often hear on the news, and so do you, that we're speaking about 80 years of infrastructure and trade that has been established that is now being eroded. This, of course, has impacts on supply chains. And then on top of that, we, of course, see a growing importance of reducing the dependencies on supply chains that are far, far away from you, because there is a correlation to uncertainty and distance when it comes to supply chains. On top of all of this, we hear that US innovates, Asia emulates, and EU regulates. And in a way, coming from the EU, I feel like that. But so EU's sustainability legislation is coming with full speed ahead, whereas we're looking at a 55% CO2 reduction by 2030. And let's say we have 4 or 5 years left to execute on that. So that's on the one hand side. But then if you move to the other side, you also have pressures from consumers, customers, and companies that are pushing in this direction also. So consumers, they want more localized. Consumers want more customized and personalized. And then companies, which our guest today will speak about, they also have to relate to production cost and import cost. And that is pushing all of us, even before the trade barriers and the tariffs, we were kind of pushed in this direction of local production. And then ending on these examples is another big macro factor also in Europe, which we call the Amazon effect. And the Amazon effect basically means that since literally billions of consumers are using Amazon or Alibaba, you expect like almost overnight delivery on everything. So the tariffs and the trade wars is one thing, but then even before that happened, you had macro forces that pushed us to rethink these supply chains and how we purchase material. So with that, that is kind of an introduction. And then with that, I would like to introduce to you our two guests today. The first one is Paul Hudson, and the other is Vincenzo Chimenti. And I will let the two of you introduce yourselves. So please, Paul.
Good morning from Salt Lake City, Utah. So I am the owner and CEO of Hudson Printing. We're here in Salt Lake City, Utah, obviously in the United States. And we have a dynamic business that really has two significant sections of it. Still by revenue, the largest part of our business is the web offset business that is where we produce magazines and catalogs and print mechanically. Things that we distribute throughout the United States, and primarily where the tariff situation affects more than anything that side of the business. So I'm sure we'll talk about that, but the amount of paper that we consume and how much of it comes from Canada is all of a large concern to us and to our customers. We also have a very large and fast and rapidly expanding digital business that we're excited about, that is more international, more national and international in scope. And we're working closely with Gelato and integrating the GelatoConnect software throughout the business in order to run more efficiently and to I think produce things in ways for more customers in ways that I think we'll speak about throughout the webinar.
Thank you, Paul. And then good afternoon to Rome, Vincenzo.
Good afternoon, Eric. Ciao everyone from Rome, Italy. I'm Vincenzo Cirimele, CEO and owner of PressUp. PressUp is a web-to-print company. We started 50 years ago the business, 100% digital on internet, and we sell from business card to posters, from books to catalogs, t-shirts, mugs. We have a very large catalog, on general commercial printing, and we have different toys, let me say, equipment, from offset machine, big one, Komori, HUV, and Heidelberg, to 5 HP Indigo machine, 100K, Kornit machine for garment, Durst and Canon for large format. So we produce a lot, and in our history, in our market, with now the different point for the future in sustainability on the market, we have everyday change. So the point for us is how to manage in the better way production, and to save margin, This is the point, because the cost of the paper and the ink go up. I received just yesterday from Sappi, my first suppliers for paper, increase prices from the 1st of April. This is the point, Eric. This is the point for us, how to produce much better, to save margin. So we started to build our software, from scratch 50 years ago. But now it's time to, I started the conversation with Gelato, with you, how to improve this workflow, the software, the digital mentality in my company, to save margin and to have much more productivity. So this is the overview from my point at the moment, Eric.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Vincenzo, and thank you, Paul, and thank you for taking the time to this. I mean, one thing we can conclude is that we can't plan a webinar like this, because before we're done with this webinar, there will be more new things that have popped up in the news. So we deliberately also wanted a genuine discussion from Paul's perspective and from Vincenzo's perspective about what is happening. And we are, as I mentioned in the introduction, at a pivotal moment in global trade. And if we take a step back and just to frame this next question to Paul and Vincenzo, we've basically seen decades, almost a century of globalism and expansion of international supply chains. And now everything is fundamentally changing. So we see rising protectionism, and also within the European countries, we see that we have EU and we have countries outside of the EU, which right? And then we have Canada and the US and Mexico, and also Asia with well-known tension between primarily China then and the EU, and China and the US. So that leads to quite significant supply chain vulnerabilities. We saw a bit of that also already in the pandemic, during the pandemic. And so many companies already started to bring back and try to reduce the risk of supply chains by making the source of the supply come closer geographically, right? But that has been accelerated with the geopolitical tensions. I mean, we also, on top of everything, we have the Middle East. And all of this, of course, as to your point, Vincenzo, about your paper price and Sappi, that impacts costs. And then you have, in addition, the domestic manufacturing focus. I mean, of course, you have Made in America, which is a slogan we know, but I wouldn't say that slogan is far away from many countries also in the EU. And we also know that's the case in Asia. So in short, like today's trade policy absolutely have negative tangible effects on many things. Vincenzo mentioned rising costs, but I mentioned uncertainties. And one PSP I spoke to yesterday quoted saying, "Uncertainty is actually worse than bad news." And I think for me, that captured a lot of the situation we live in right now. And everything combined leads to increased end consumer prices. So if you take all of that and compound it, Paul and Vincenzo, how are you thinking about these old sourcing relationships and these old sourcing strategies? From your perspective, how does this alter and change the way you look at sourcing and supply chain management? If we can begin with Vincenzo, please.
Eric, it's not easy, of course, but from my perspective, it's in our industry. Okay, we have in Italy and in Europe, we have tons and tons of PSP, small PSP. Okay, only 5-10 people. Okay, it's very small, and each PSP talk with suppliers. Okay, and the chain is very long with no structure, nothing. Okay, and we have only 2, 3, 5 giants in the world that can speak with suppliers about price, about timing, about the future. Okay, so I think it's important to have a very group relationship. Okay, all together in one platform, probably. Okay, and we can speak, we can buy directly, okay, with one click, okay, directly from our suppliers in Europe or in Asia, okay, and have right price, right timing. It's not easy, I know, but I believe we can build this all together. It's important. This is important. This is the first point. The second point is to manage, okay, globalization in Europe, okay, and in Italy, okay, about only 3-5 good, okay, suppliers. Okay, it's important to speak all together with this, Eric, because we lose grip. Let me say, we lose, okay, attractive for the future.
Yeah, thank you for that, Vincenzo. And I see some comments here in the Q&A field. I know that emotions and feelings and frustrations run high, and I don't want to express any political opinion. The only thing I want through this webinar is to get the best out of Paul and the best out of Vincenzo, and get some tangible advice for how you manage, and then hopefully also get some questions that I can share with the two of you, so that we can better navigate the situation we stand before. So thanks, Vincenzo. Coming to you, Paul, from your perspective and the way you look at your business now, what do you feel this has led you to rethink?
Before I come to that, I actually want to tail on to something from that last question. In terms of suppliers, I think it's interesting that, so let me set the stage first. We in my business consume about 100,000 pounds of paper a day, most of which comes from Canada. So that sets the stage for a couple of very bad weekends after, these announcements, right? So the first one a few weeks ago, we became aware on, I think on a Saturday, saying that these 25% tariffs would become real on Tuesday. So we of course have contracts in place with customers at, small margins, to Vincenzo's point. And we have, even though we have 2 or 3 to 4 million pounds of paper on our floor at any given time, that's really only, less than a 30-day type supply of paper. And so, and we have constant resupply from Canada. So having something where we have expectations and already established contracts and work already in progress in the plant for customers, where we can't control an input at the tune of 25% is incredibly disruptive. And again, because there has been so much decrease in the supply of paper because of mills who have shut down, or there's been an incredible amount of consolidation in the paper market. There's been an incredible amount of mills which have converted to packaging grades from paper grades. So the amount of supply has really diminished over recent years. So on top of that scenario, then of course you add something such as shock as this, it becomes incredibly difficult to manage. And but the point I was getting to, because you mentioned suppliers, our suppliers, our merchants, and our paper mill representatives in Canada and in other places around the world are incredible. They're incredibly great partners, right? They work very hard for us. We're working together to try and find solutions. Of course, they have a limited set of solutions that they can apply, and we have only so much we can do. But it is to the point of suppliers, like I think most of us are feeling like these huge political things are outside of our control, and that's very frustrating, right? So it's not that the mills or the suppliers or the merchants are trying to take advantage or do something egregious here. It's really, they're of course having to react to the news as quickly and as we do. And so I appreciate those people. They've been incredibly helpful in trying to help me understand what their response might be and how I might communicate to my customers. So I'm sorry, that was sort of a tail on to sort of your previous question, and now I've forgotten the question you just asked.
No, so the question is, have you already altered your supply chain strategies, your suppliers? What tangible impact has this had for you and your business?
So we certainly have been in conversations. There's no question. So in order to protect against the tariffs, I think most U.S.-based print companies have created conversations more with domestic mills, but again, the amount of supply is limited, especially in the Western United States. The mills in the United States, for the most part, are very distant from us, and so it's much closer for us, for example, to pull paper from British Columbia, which is where the majority of our paper comes from. That's much closer to us than Wisconsin, Maine, places on the eastern side of the United States. And so which is sort of naturally driven because paper is very heavy. For the cost of the freight is very expensive. And so that has been kind of our natural reaction. So we've certainly had conversations. I also, of course, have uncertainty around, because many of our sheets of paper come from South Korea, also a number of European mills. And you wonder, is that next, right? Perhaps perhaps there's a tariff with Canada, but now what happens does something happen with South Korea tomorrow or with the EU? It's completely unclear how we respond, especially because there's not enough domestic US capacity to fulfill the need.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Eric,
Vincenzo, please.
just to add, about supply chain, we have every day now news problems with our suppliers. Okay, we have Father's Day now. Okay, we have problem with frames, with mugs, with paper. Okay, time it's not standard. Okay, because political situation is not easy. But if I want to change my suppliers, it's not easy. It's not easy. So think about tomorrow if in one platform, okay, I said, Eric, and okay, about gelato procurement tomorrow, I can change in one click, okay, my orders from suppliers 1 to suppliers 2 or new suppliers, okay, to have as soon as possible mugs or frames. This is a good benefit for me. It's a great benefit for my client because my client don't understand delay about my suppliers, price hike. This is the point. Altogether, PSP, okay, in the same way, okay, to fix this or to try to fix or to have one direction.
And so from your perspective, Vincenzo, part of managing this uncertainty has been to deepen the collaboration with Gelato and with GelatoConnect Procurement. Now, I want to make sure that the listeners understand that this is not a webinar for us to sell GelatoConnect or GelatoConnect Procurement, but at the same time, if this is what you are feeling, Vincenzo, I of course think that this is very relevant for the listeners, right?
Yes, this is true, Eric, because I started to collaborate with Gelato months ago about this project, and my team now said, "Hey, Vincenzo, we can move, okay, our suppliers, we can move, okay, our stock, okay, stock warehouse on this product, okay, to manage much better, okay, the numbers, the future, the analysis." So this is the point, okay.
Yeah, it was interesting when we did the AI scanning of the frames, and we realized, oh my God, you're completely wrongly stocked. You bought the wrong frames, and that is something, it's hard for a human being to keep track of thousands and tens and thousands of frames in just one category. So that, of course, is something I appreciate that you share. But Paul, from your perspective, how if you have other PSPs now from the US listening in, what advice, if any, can you give on tangible changes and directional course directions that you have done that you want to share with the listeners here?
I think I'll keep that short because I think that so much of this is evolving so fast, and it's up and then it's down, and honestly, we don't know, right? And so I think that I don't have anything intelligent to add on that other than to, I guess, reinforce what was just said between you and Vincenzo, which is if there's a way in which we can work together, and again having sort of a coordinated way, that might provide more weight for us, right? So I fully support that idea. I wish I had better short-term solutions that I might share because I don't know, it's moving too fast.
Yeah. Well, speaking about moving fast and double clicking on the actual print industry, we did some research ahead of this webinar on some examples that is directly impacting the print industry with these tariffs, and I want to share a bit with you, and then hear Paul and Vincenzo your thoughts on it. So there is a wide array of materials going cross-border, as we all know. You have pulp from Canada into the US. We in Europe import special papers, fine art papers, and we ship it across country borders left and right. And then you have a ton of substrates and machine parts coming from Asia. This is just very, very correlated to the print industry. We also have a regional production imbalance. We read in one article that Canada is actually supplying 80% of North America's newsprint. And then on top of that, you have some materials, very special materials like aluminum lithographic plates that actually goes back and forth between 3 to 4 countries before it's arriving to the end destination. And that causes a compounded effect on the tariffs across multiple borders, right? And then lastly, you have this very explicit tariff threat that directly impact profit margins in an industry that is already living under the condition of very small profit margins in general, single digit free cash flow margins. So of course, when we speak to PSPs, which I do every single day, you hear a lot of pain points, you hear a lot of worries about this situation we're in and the economic impact it will have on their business. So for you, Paul, if you think about the tariffs that you're now seeing, and let's play that out, if we just take Canada and the US, how do you think this will impact your own margins? And of course, I don't expect it to be specific, but more generally speaking, and the whole industry as such, similar businesses in the US.
It's devastating, and I would say you almost have to paint the picture with certain types of print are declining a little bit. So again, the larger types of volume, the offset type, mechanically printed sorts of things, has always been a high volume, low margin kind of a play, right? There's always a lot of competition, and it's a little bit more difficult, I would say, to differentiate yourselves. And so any kind of a shock to those low margin types of businesses is significant. We have no choice but to pass that straight through to customers. We just simply simply couldn't support it. The other thing that's interesting about that is sort of setting the stage for that, which is in the United States, at least, we also have a lot of customers who have printed consistently through the years, but because of the increases in our postage and in other types of inputs, but have thought about, perhaps I'll print less, or perhaps I won't print anymore, and I'll take my thing online, my catalog, my magazine, my whatever it is. So it's interesting that there's also this backdrop of people who are thinking about trying to understand the value of print in especially when we're talking about larger projects, and the increase in other costs like postage. Now all of a sudden you have more uncertainty. And you just see their minds were thinking about, well, do I change my strategy now? Does this still make sense for me? I don't see that nearly as much on the types of products that we're talking more about, which is the primarily digital printed, more personalized, more localized, more targeted, more interesting, kinds of project types of things that we're talking about. I don't see that nearly as much there. And also the input cost of material often is much less, I would say. If I look at a larger offset printed project, my cost of paper is a significant.
Yeah,
all inputs, plates, paper, etc., but especially paper is a significant piece of that. And in my other, smaller digital projects that tend to have more value per piece, they will the amount of the percentage of material often is much less. So just naturally would be impacted a little bit less in that type of business.
Thank you for that. We have about 15 minutes left, so I'm going to gradually just take in the questions that the listeners are submitting here. So Deborah Korn, hi Deborah, asked one question here that I'm going to direct to you, Vincenzo. Are you seeing that your suppliers are becoming more transparent about their own supply chain risks? Do you have more transparent discussions and dialogues with your suppliers?
Yes, but not with all, Eric, not with all. This is the point. And you said we have 2, 3 big now suppliers in Europe from plate, okay, for example, okay, and we lose probably 2-3% in our margin on offset jobs. Okay, I ask them, can you share with us, okay, your vision, your capacity in Europe, okay, how to impact this on our industry for the future? If it's possible, I can buy, okay, a lot plate now to have in stock, but we don't have very easy conversation. It's not clear with this, for the offset. It's much clearer on digital world, let me say, about small format and large format. So from my perspective, probably we move from large orders, and I mean, for example, 10,000 magazine, 10,000 books, okay, with small margin and high cost, to micro orders, to digital. Okay, I prefer invest in micro orders from creativity economy or small medium enterprise, okay, to print. Okay, this is to switch mentality and our approach, okay, to manage small volume, micro orders, and not huge, because we have small margin, and this is dangerous, okay, to buy plate tomorrow with high cost.
Thank you. And another question here that I'm going to direct to you, Paul, and then one question comes afterwards to you, Vincenzo, about GelatoConnect and the capability to predict consumptions and supply. But let's start with you, Paul. Do you see supply chain risk management now under these conditions as a cost, or is it actually, could it be viewed as an investment?
Fantastic question. Honestly, that feels like I need to change my own thinking a little bit. I would say to this point, I've been absolutely thinking of this from the cost perspective. I think that perhaps going towards this idea of investment, I think that the more communicative and collaborative we are with our customers, absolutely, the more this can, these kinds of things can be an investment in our customer relationships. So, because I've absolutely been seeing this as risk management, there's no question. But one of the things that I think I enjoy most about this industry is the ability to communicate with the customer, look at what it is that they're producing, and then potentially bring some of Print's new tools and automation capabilities and exciting things that we can all do now to their project and try and deliver it in a better and kind of way. And so if I apply this same sort of uncertainty and these same sort of things to that construct, I can take conversations to my customers and say, hey, these are the things that are happening, these are things we're uncertain about, but this is what we do know, and perhaps be able to consult with them about how to, create a different type of product that might still achieve the goals that they have for printing that product, but perhaps in a slightly different way. So I see it in that way, perhaps as an investment. Otherwise, to this point, it's been completely about managing the risk.
But the question is interesting because it also brings to light the significant shift in the world we've just lived in and the world we are living in. And just asking this question was also from Deborah Korn here, but this question is a very interesting question, that we're in such uncertain times that supply chain risk management is actually possible to view now as an investment.
And I think that would be interesting to really dig in deeper in terms of are we talking about hedging, against supply, or are we talking, mechanical things like that, or more philosophical things like I just described in terms of like, hey, maybe we can help you re-engineer your project. Maybe it's yes and both, right? But that is a very interesting question, and I think I'll be thinking about that one for a day or two.
Yeah, there are many things we need to think about here, Paul. So from Achille comes a question, Vincenzo, to you. Supply chain volatility is a major challenge for print providers beyond local production. What role do automation and predictive analytics play in mitigating these risks? And how does GelatoConnect integrate these capabilities to give you more stability and a higher degree of efficiency?
Good question, Eric. Good question.
I was not, it was Achille.
But good, Achille, good question. But I let me say, probably real numbers, real data, okay? Because it's important now to combine, to manage from PSP, okay, tons and tons of information and orders, micro orders. One orders, one shipping. Two orders, two shipping. It's totally different. So it's production, pre-press, press, and post-press logistics. So it's a mess. Now it's a mess. It's important to invest in AI, probably, okay, in workflow, in people, IT. And, Eric, I am engineering. I started this, but at the end, I say, hey, guys, okay, we can have much more benefit, okay, if you use standard, if you use good software, if you use good team, and we start to connect with Gelato Procurement, Gelato Workflow, and Gelato Logistics. Now on Gelato Logistics, we roll out 100% of our orders. It's very, wow, it's easy. But the point is how to predict, okay, peak season, how to predict Monday or Friday, okay, production, okay. And this is important. Before GelatoConnect, we analyze and have programming day by day. Now we have vision in 1 week, in 2 weeks, and probably we can order our materials in 1 month, in 2 months. And this is wow. Okay, this is money. This is time consuming, and we move people in other area. This is amazing for me.
Yeah, no, I think that the partnerships that we are now seeing around the print industry within the GelatoConnect community are, I don't know if it's okay to say this, but we are actually in a situation where the crazy world and the high unpredictability we live under and live in is accelerating these shifts, because people are forced to be more open-minded, and people are forced to rethink how we've done it in the past, which leads me to a question for you, Paul, that we received from Sasha Palucci, and apologies if I mispronounced that. With escalating tariffs intensifying cost pressures in your print industry, do you foresee an even faster rate of consolidation than what we experienced after COVID? Is the only viable path forward becoming an online, globally connected print provider, leveraging localized production through consolidated partnerships?
I think that has 2 parts to it. So there is incredible amount of pressure around consolidation in particularly when I look at traditional printing. So taking only that part of it for a minute, I would say that I would say yes. I would say this creates an additional level of pressure, because those companies that are better capitalized, those companies that can sort of consolidate higher levels of buying and put more pressure on suppliers, and or bring more of that together to their cost advantage. I think there's no question that that will continue to happen, and this will accelerate it. The point is astute. Very much that happened significantly through COVID. We saw a report out just this last week, I think, from Smithers, saying that COVID had a significant impact in creating that consolidation in that part of the industry. In terms of what I would say the more dynamic part with a global supply chain, such as, or I'm sorry, a global connected group of suppliers, such as in GelatoConnect, I think absolutely that is beneficial. I think absolutely that helps in create more buying power among a group of people like-minded, thinking together across the world, able to utilize each other's assets, leveraging your balance sheet. I think that's incredibly beneficial in that world. I think that's much harder to do in larger project mechanically printed, where I think there will continue to be pressure for consolidation. In the world such as GelatoConnect, I think there's very much room for individual operators, smaller companies, family-owned businesses, those kinds of things, to still operate and thrive and work together in a smarter way.
And on that note, about small print shops, smaller companies, family-owned, there is another question here. And I think that this will be the last question. And then perhaps we can ask you, Paul, and you, Vincenzo, to give one or two summarizing thoughts on, from a very personal perspective. You're business owners, both of you. How do you see the near future, the coming 2 weeks, the coming 3 weeks? What are the 1-2 things you're going to focus on? But let's start with first the last question here to you, Vincenzo. What advice do you have for smaller print shops with limited capital to compete in the changing landscape without making major investments?
Other great question, good question. Okay, it's not easy, but from my perspective, it's to invest in digital capacity, okay, in digital process, okay, and connect with, or buy, let me say, connect, buy with good workflow, okay, and stay very, very in small chain, okay, to produce one by one the product, okay. And 3 things, I think: networking with peers, so networking with professional, networking with colleagues, with other PSP, because this is important to exchange information, exchange probably job, exchange, okay, market vision, okay. It's not easy, but I think in this. Second point is to digitalize company, okay. Digitalize company, invest in software, invest in people, young people, okay, with digital mentality, okay. And then, okay, invest, and this is what, in right and small digital equipment, okay, for micro production. This is my 3 point, okay, this moment.
Thank you so much. So Paul, I don't know if you remember the question that I left in the air before I went to Vincenzo.
Basically, you said kind of what to do about the coming 2-3 weeks. So my quick answer to that is that it's scary. Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's more about communication. And I actually was reminded of something that's just on my whiteboard that's been there for years. It's a Seth Godin quote, which he said, real security lies in creating value. So if even if you're a small print shop and can't invest, if you have tight relationships with customers and you're creating value, then I think that's where security lies, just despite, you know, changes in the world, right? So I think the better we continue to communicate with our customers, provide the right kinds of things that creates value in their businesses or in their lives, then that's where we have security. My parting thought, I think, is that we're time for that, right? Is just simply, I want to applaud this forum because as we've all been really worried about this, I have turned to industry news and very actively gone to look for help there. I've gone to look for information about any kind of lobbying efforts. I've communicated people in industry news and industry organizations to try and understand what we're doing as an industry, how we're somehow represented in this craziness right now. And honestly, all pretty much, and Deb's here, and shame on me for not actually going to look at what Deb's written, because she's undoubtedly has written about it, but it has been completely silent that I've seen in other industry news, and I don't think that's okay, right? So I really appreciate the fact that we can get together like this and actually talk about it, even though we don't have all the answers. But we as an industry globally, I think, have a remarkable amount of power. We have a remarkable amount of capacity and capability, and we're well connected. And I think we mostly like each other. And so perhaps this is the place we find those answers, because I'm finding a lack of information in places where I would have expected to see a lot of industry information.
No, thank you for that, Paul. Vincenzo, coming 2-3 weeks, it feels a little bit less disruptive, if I may say so, for you compared to Paul and Hudson Printing, but I might be mistaken. So what's your view, Vincenzo, coming 2-3 weeks from your perspective?
It's not positive, okay, because we have every day not good news, okay, and we at the moment we stay very close, okay, to the market with the communication. Yes, Paul, with the communication to advise our client and our market, okay, about the situation. It's not easy. So for me, the next weeks it's not good.
Well, thank you so much, both of you. As always, it's great to see you. It's great to engage with you, and also thank you to everyone that listened in and for some great questions and comments. And I know, Paul, that you will have Gelato visiting your facility for deployment of GelatoConnect next week. So enjoy your time there, and then we wish you both and everyone all the best, and good luck to navigate these incredibly unusual and in many ways very, very difficult times. So thank you for sharing your thoughts, and then we'll speak soon again. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.